Hey everybody, welcome back for episode 2 of All About Framing. For those of you that watched the first video I put out, I covered some of the basics of frame selection, mat selection, things of that nature. So now we're on to the actual assembling of the frame. I ordered, frame has come in, I showed it in the last video. I chose a swampy green color frame. I like the way that looks. Here's a piece of artwork we're going to be framing. This is a commission that Steve Levine did for me that is kind of a re-envisioning of the original TMNT 2 arcade game. So I chose 2 mats on this. You don't have to go 2 mats. It takes longer. You know, there's pros and cons to that. Depends on the look you're going for. I've got this felt mat that has kind of a green color. And I also have this, it's called like sapphire blue, but it's kind of like a blue metallic color. So these mat boards come in very large pieces. So I have the rest of the mat board over here. To save a little time, I already pre-cut it. There's a couple things you're going to need for this stage. Number one, you're going to need a mat cutting tool. This is nothing fancy. This one is Logan Compact Classic Mat Cutter Model 301-1. I got this thing pretty cheap. I think I got it on clearance for like $50 somewhere. So you need that for cutting. You're going to need what's called linen hinging tape. You can use a different tape as long as it's archival grade. This specifically, though, is made for framing artwork and hinging mats. You'll see on the back of the box, it shows kind of the process we're going to head down. You're also going to need a bone. I think these are called like a bone folder. It's basically like a flat edge almost for kind of smoothing over edges on the tape to get it to stick down really well. They're not very expensive. They cost about $7. And then the mat cutter is going to come with a few tools. A mat cutter for cutting down the size, also for cutting the beveled edges. So everything you need is typically in there. They do include a slip sheet, they call it. You only need this when you're cutting the window of the mat. So those are the basic supplies. So I already did one cut just to save us a little bit of time in this video. So what I'll show you is the process here. So when I get the mat board, like I said, is huge. So typically what I do is I start off with my frame size that I've already figured out. I take the shortest dimension and then I cut the board down that way. That way I can save the most so I can potentially reuse it on the next piece. You can do it a bunch of different ways, but it's really about optimizing your material. So if you want to use it again for a different project, you have a big enough piece for it. So now I've cut these down to the smallest dimension. I have 2 of them. Now I need to cut them down to length. So I'll show you that process here in just a minute. Now before we do that, some of your upfront homework you got to do. Usually you need to make the list of the frame size that you ordered. So I talked about how to size your frame last time. And then I chose a mat size. A lot of these, based on the golden ratio, which I talked about in the last episode, I chose a window with the mat around 3 inches or so, give or take some, depending on the piece. So I went in online, I put in my frame size, and I put in the piece of the visible window of the art into a calculator online. So the art piece has a certain dimensions, left to right, top to bottom. However, oftentimes the art is not all the way to the edge. So your art size is the interior edges wherever the visible area that you want to see starts. So you're going to plug that into the mat calculator. You're going to tell it, do you want a single, double mat? And then it's going to spit out what your border, basically the width of your cuts is going to be on the mat cutter. The one I use is from Logan, who made the mat cutter. I'll drop a link in the comments here. The other thing you want to make sure you have too, which is real handy, I picked this up at Lowe's, Home Depot, wherever carry these. It's just a nice precision ruler. I got a metal one, just a little more durable with cutting stuff. So without further ado, we'll start cutting these down. So with this project, with the TMNT art, I need to make the frame size for these mats 16 3/4 by 22 0.375 inches. I have already cut this down on the 16.75 inch dimension. So now I need to do the 22.375 inch dimension. So I am going to do that. So I got my ruler. I'm marking it down. That's going to be 22 3/8. I'm going to mark it on the other side of the mat as well. I need to cut both sides here. So I'm measuring from the bottom up. So 22 and 2, 4, 1, 2, 3/8. So they say measure twice, cut once. I totally agree with that. If you do a bunch of these, you are prone to make mistakes on your measurements. So double check them, just make sure you're in the right place. So this one looks good here. And I'm just double checking the other side. So this one looks good here. All right, so we're ready to cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this just to give myself a little guideline. You don't have to do this with the tick marks, but I like to. It's just one more way to make sure you're less likely to make a mistake. So I'm going to draw the line on down the back of the mat board. Okay, so now we're ready to actually cut this down to size. So this one is the felt green one. So the mat board is going to have a piece in here that helps you measure dimensions. This is for cutting your mats. This is not for this process of cutting down the board to the right size. So we're going to take this out. There's 2 little screw posts on it, and then it just slides or lifts right on. Okay, well, I'll set this to the side now. All right, now we're going to slide the mat into the mat board cutter, and we're going to line up. There's a flat edge here on this side of the cutter. I'm going to line up the two edges and the line that I just drew there. Okay. For me, whether you're left-handed, right-handed, you may have better success, but I typically turn this a little bit. I got my lines lined up. Now I'm going to need that mat cutting knife here. So I'm going to take this out. I'm going to extend it. It has a little thing to tighten it back in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put pressure on this so that the mat board doesn't move while I'm cutting it. So I'm going to put this in. This edge has nothing against it. Make sure you're going the right direction with the board so that this blade sits flush against there. If you go the opposite way, the plastic's going to bump into it. So I'm going to go here. I'm just going to run gently along the edge. We're using the edge of the straight side to guide my dimension. And if I did it right, piece breaks off. Simple as that. Now I have one piece of mat board ready to go. So I'm going to repeat that process here real quick so that I can get the other half ready. All right, so as I said before, this one is going to be grab my sheet of paper out here. There it is. All right, this one is going to be 22 3/8. So I am going to measure that out here. I'm going to mark it on my board. And when you're doing this too, one thing you can look at if you have a board that's maybe not perfect, maybe you want to cut it from one end versus the other. Just a tip I've learned as I've gone along here. So I'm going to measure 22 3/8. There we go, 22 3/8. Do this on the other side as well. All right, perfect. So I'm going to double check each of these, like I said. Moving a little quicker, but quicker is not always good. Trust me, I've made mistakes doing this. Gotten a lot better though, and learned some things that make it easier. Double checking your measurements is definitely one of them. All right, so I got my 2 tick marks lined up with my straight edge of my ruler. I'm gonna draw my guideline down there. All right, now we're ready to cut this down. Oh, lost you guys. Got a little crazy with the mat board. All right, I'm not editing that out. As you can see, mistakes happen. Ran into the camera. All right, so I got my mat knife back out and extended. I don't like to leave it out just so you don't accidentally cut yourself. Then I'm going to hold down my pressure, cut down the board. Move smoothly along the edge. If all went well, it didn't go well, it didn't come off, so I got to go down one more time. So most of it's going to be detached. The last little bit will get cut the second time. That just means that I wasn't holding the knife far enough down or when I was cutting it. No big deal. All right, so got 2 mat boards, so pretty quick process. All right, now if you do this right and you make your frame size, basically you're going to add, so for me I was going for 3, 3 1/4, a little under 3 depending on the piece of art. You basically will take your art size when you bought your frame and add that 3 1/4 to both sides. Don't forget both sides because you're going to have mat on both sides, not just one. So basically 2 times the mat width you want plus the image area, and that's your frame size with height. After you did it, you can figure it out by calculation what it should roughly be. So since I've done that nicely so that all the mat windows are going to be exactly the same, I only have to set my mat cutter up once. So this little piece I talked about, and I want to teach you a little trick here. It says set scale. This is the biggest area that I had a hard time with when I started out. This makes you want to think this is where the piece goes against or where the measurement goes against. Well, when you look at these things, they have a measurement built in them. However, it is not that edge that has the set scale on it. See the set scale? It's not that edge that goes up against here and takes your measurement. If you do this wrong, it's gonna basically cut the wrong dimension. You're gonna have to start over. I've done that more than once. I've done enough of these, I'm used to it now, but the flat edge, the really flat edge, is the edge that goes closest to this piece. We're gonna put this back in. Okay, I'm gonna check my homework that I already did, calculating my mat size online. So according to the calculator, it says that this piece should have an exactly 3 inch by 3 inch. So I'm gonna find a 3 inch by 3 inch line, get it lined up nice and perfectly. I'm gonna tighten 3 inches right here, set scale, 3 inches. This is where the piece will sit against. And then I've tightened in both of these screws. And if you look, these things are very firmly in there. Okay. So now we're ready to cut mats. So what you're supposed to do when you cut these, unlike the piece where we cut down the board to size, we actually are supposed to use this slit mat, which is going to help you with cutting. So the slit mat slides in there first. Okay, as you can see, then your mat goes on top of it. So I'm just going to slide the mat right over top. So what you have to do first before you do any cutting is you're basically going to draw a line. Okay? Now since these are all 3 inches, I can go ahead. Actually, this mat thing's sliding on me. I don't need it for this part. I'm just going to take it out for a minute. I can take this out, move it around. Next side, I'm going to draw a nice straight line along the edge. And if I measured each of these, so now I have kind of like a box. If I measured each of these, they'd be 3 inches. So this is the next test phase. I highly recommend this before you cut your board and realize you made a mistake. We all do it. Just put your piece right up there. See if it lines up like you were expecting inside the box. Is the box too big, too little? Now's the time you can make adjustments. So right now, this looks about right. The border is going to be about where I wanted it to be. It's going to cut off a little bit of the top and bottom, which I knew it was going to do. I planned it that way on purpose because I wanted to keep the mat edges even, a lot easier. So now I'm basically ready to cut the mat. So that slip sheet that I pulled out, I'm going to put it right back in there. Okay, slip sheet's in there. Now these lines are very important too. Just to talk to you about it. So this has a groove. Before I get started here, and there's a channel on here. So that basically that groove is going to sit on top of here, and this is going to keep it moving straight, not moving. And then you have to push down the blade. Whenever you cut, make sure you're going the right direction the blade is facing. Don't go backwards. You can very easily do that if you slide the wrong way. Now, what I basically created is a guide. So the reason why we have to draw these lines is when I put it in this way into it, I'm going to start here, slide along this line, which means I have a stopping point and a starting point and a stopping point down at the end. So that's basically what tells me when to start and when to stop. Based on experience, because I've had a lot of mats where I've cut it and the mat center didn't want to just quite fall out, meaning it was like attached a little in the corner, stuff like that. So what I do nowadays, so looks like the blade's on this side, so I got to slide this way, is there's a little notch here that's supposed to line up with your line. I start just a millimeter before it. You never know it when you cut it, but it almost certainly guarantees you that you are going to have a perfect mat cutting window. So here we go, ready to roll. Everything's lined up. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to push down. If your thing bumps on you like it just did to me, just pull the razor back up. It's only going to leave a poke. You're not even going to see it. All right, so I'm going to hold it again. I'm going to push down. It's pushed all the way down. I'm going to hold the mat, hold the cutter, and slide it on down. You can go as fast or as slow as you want. Just go smoothly. I'm going to go just past the line. Okay, there we go. And that's all it takes. Turn it to the next side. Okay. We're going to do this one. Like I said, start a millimeter beforehand. Slide on down. Stop just after. Okay. Next side, you can see it's already starting to flap out. Just get you that nice beveled edge everybody wants. So I'm going to put this back in here. And if your slip sheet gets old, you cut on a lot like I have, you can always change it out for a new one. You just grab a piece of scrap mat that's, more lengthy than anything. All right, push it down, nice and secure. Slide this on down, just past the mark. Okay, there we go. And one side remaining. Looks like everything's going well. Okay, all right. All right. We're going to cut it. Okay. So I believe that should all be right. Oh, no, one more side. I lied. Okay. All right, on the side. Should all fall out. There you go. Nice beveled edge, nice and clean. Now you got a finished mat. If I wasn't instructing you how to do this, it would be a super quick process. Really not bad. I set my spare mat to the side. Never know when you're going to need it for something. All right, so now we're going to move on to the top mat. The top mat is a little different. So because the top mat is going to be sitting on top of here, you don't want them to be exactly the same size. So when I did that mat cutter, you select single or double mat, and you can tell how much of an overlap you want. You can go as small as 1/8 around or up to 1/4. You can technically go more if it's a really big piece, but I typically only do 1/8 or 1/4. In this instance, I'm going with 1/4. So what I need to do is have this mat window be slightly larger. And the calculator already told me what that needs to be. So that is going to be 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. So it's basically going to add a 1/4 inch border around there where the blue will show through. So I'm resetting my dimensions on here to 3 1/4. All right, I can take this matte piece out, you'll find you get these little like dangly things when you cut on it. Just rip them off. Get them out of here. They just get stuck to your mats and stuff. So especially the felt mats, they tend to really suck up a bunch of junk here. All right, so I'm going to repeat the process I just did, except for now I'm at 3 1/4. So lines down the side, lines here. Okay. Oh, that wrong side. Okay. All right. So I first, I don't know why I did it, but I accidentally drew an extra line on the interior side of this. Don't do that. All right. So now I got this done. I'm just going to set this on top just to make sure that the mat dimensions look like they're about right for the overlap. As you can see, there's slight overlap and gap there, so it looks good. So I measured everything correctly. All right. So now we're right back to the same process. Time to cut. I'm going to flip this mat cutter over because this felt thing is going to suck up all them little stragglers from cutting on this thing. So, there we go. Same process we just did. So this one is going through at 3 1/4. All right. So same direction. Gonna lock this in. Okay. 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 Go. Make sure your board is flush against here. If you don't do that, that's another problem area. That can mess you up. Okay. One more side to go. All right, perfect. Fell right out. So now the moment of truth. Well, first of all, this thing is going to get junk. You can see a little fuzzy things on there from cutting. So I'm just going to do a quick dust off with my fingers. Don't scrape it. Just hit it. Most of these little things will come right off. If they don't, you can use a little piece of tape or something to pull them off. I often, before closing these up, use an air blaster to get rid of all the little fuzzies and stuff that might be in the frame, which you'll see in the next step. So I did this process right. Let's see. All right. So I did something wrong. There you go. All right. So, this just illustrates like framing's not that hard, but you can make measurements wrong. So the window is supposed to be there. The interior dimension was supposed to be there. So I guess we're going to use this one like that. So I actually grabbed the dimensions incorrectly. So the larger dimension would need to be the outer mat. So when I wrote these down, I wrote them down incorrectly. So, but it's all good. This color will look good too. So we're going to go with this blue with the green in the middle there. And do a little trial fit on the arc piece itself. See how it looks. Okay. And looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that. It's going to look nice when it gets in the frame. And honestly, it's okay because the frame is green. So I got green, then blue, and then green on the frame. There's a little separation with the color. So we'll roll with that. All right, so the next part we got to do is we got our mats all cut, so we got to build our frame package. I'm only gonna do the part where we install our artwork right now, and I'm gonna save the rest of it for another video. So you should have, as part of your package, a mat here, mat board. As I said before, I typically have them pre-cut it, so we're gonna work through frame packages. And we'll end it here for right now, and I will show you how to do that in the next video. Thanks.